Hello, and welcome to the Tangles and Toons channel. My name is David, and I'm here again with Gayle.
Good morning.
And today we are going to be adding another Tangle pattern to our Inktober 2025 layout. So the Tangle pattern for day 16 of our Inktober challenge is called Tripoli by Zentangle Ink, and I'm going to show you here on my trusty post-it how the basic assembly of this pattern goes. So Tripoli is a triangle-based geometric pattern. So we start with just a plain old three-sided triangle. Now the next step in this step out is that we're going to mirror or aura one of those sides and then just create that additional triangle. And we continue that process, mirroring or creating an aura, another triangle. Now the idea is that you try to make these roughly the same size because that enables you as you go to create additional geometric patterns or meta patterns simply by combining. So here we now have a hexagon shape made up of our little triangles. But you can continue to assemble these in any pattern, in any order that you'd like, that is allowed by a three-sided shape, of course. Obviously, there's going to be what we call the elegance of limits, right? We're going to be limited by the fact of the triangular shape, but we can put those triangles together in any way we'd like. And we create these ongoing patterns, filling as much or as little space as we'd like. Now, you can do variations of this where you curve the lines, let's say, that make up your initial triangle, and then you do the same kind of an aura, and you would carry on that pattern. So it would alter to whatever degree you alter the shape of the triangle. It's going to alter the kinds of shapes and patterns it would be possible for you to make. That may be something you're interested in, or perhaps not. And then lastly, once we have a pattern, we can embellish the insides or the outsides of these shapes in a whole variety of ways. We won't be able to cover all the possibilities, of course, in this one video, but I wanted to mention, so we can use a thing called fragments to fill in inside these triangular shapes, and we can then embellish those fragments in a certain way. If our pens don't quit, there we go. We can do different kinds of things here where we can create different shapes, different ideas within. We can put other tangles within tangles. We could create little shapes that are repeated within these triangles, etc., etc., etc. So it's endless and a lot of fun. But this is the tangle we're going to add today to our layout. So as I've looked over my layout here, again, this is very organic, so I haven't planned this other than, a day at a time. I think I'm going to put some of my Tripoli shapes over here in this area. And let's begin to add to our composition. Of course, you have to kind of decide how big you want each individual triangle to be as you start laying these in, because once you start drawing, then you want to keep that consistent shape in order to make the pattern pleasing to look at, or following at least the original step out. So already I'm drawing behind this other shape. Kind of like that. And I'm going to just continue out making some of these shapes as it goes behind until I'm satisfied with how many of them I have in place. And sometimes it's helpful to do like I just did there, is to place a dot. So you draw that initial line, let's say I'm going to do it right here, that aura, and then you're going to go halfway on that for your other point, and you just make a point out here so that you can have some sort of a visual guide on how to complete that triangle. It's not required, of course, but it's just a little tip that some people find useful, especially if you're drawing behind. It might just help you to keep that guide in the right place. Keep your sizing roughly the same and so on. And there's no right, wrong, or in between kind of idea about how many you should use, where you should end, how big they should be. That's just individual and completely dependent on your goals in your composition. So if you wanted to use a ton of these, you could. If you just want to use a few of them, that's fine too. And of course, do keep in mind, at least as our composition is, we want to have room for all 31 tangles. For me, that's about where I'm going to stop. How are we going to embellish this tangle? Now, technically, you don't have to. You could just be done. But I like to add some more interest to these things, some more details. So I'm going to use what are called fragments in Zentangle. This then, instead of becoming a pattern by itself, this becomes what we refer to as reticula, a space within which we're going to add fragments. And fragments are their own mini patterns or portions of patterns that we can add to this. So I'm going to start with these larger ones, and I'm going to make a little dot in the approximate center of that triangle. I'm going to do a number of these the same way, so I'll just do a few of those just to get started. And now once I have that, I'm going to draw some little seed shapes, if you will, from each corner. So I'm going to make a little bit of a curved line going in opposite directions there. Just out to the corner of that triangle. Now once I have those in place, well, you can also do a line down the center if you'd like, if you want a little more substance to those. And then in this open area, I'm going to create a little bit of a shape that sort of auras that basic seed shape that we've laid in there, and I'll ink those in. So this is some smaller work here, depending on the size of your triangles, and you may choose to embellish yours completely differently. But I'm going to do this for a few of these. Over here where they're a little bit larger. So we could draw that first line, like I said, right out. And then we can create a seed shape around that is another way to do that if you want to do it in reverse. Now the other pattern I'm going to use is similar in terms of the initial phase of it. So I'm going to create that dot in a few of these. And I'm going to create that same little seed shape but instead of drawing these little triangular dark spots, I'm going to create little orbs right in the intersections of those seed shapes. It's a very subtle difference, but it is a difference. And you can see I'm kind of drawing these sort of wavy lines. And that's part of it is just because it's so tiny and I'm holding my pen lightly that it creates that sense of wobbliness. But I like that look too. I like to have it look less computer printed and more hand drawn. So that just gives me that opportunity. Makes the lines a little more expressive if you want to think of it that way. This time, instead of drawing a dot in the center, I'm going to draw a curved line that intersects these corners, which leaves a space in the center, and I'll just put a little dot on the center part of those 3 lines. Again, just a very slight variance that creates a little bit different pattern that we can look at. And just to clarify, I'm calling this little curve like this a C, like the letter C. And I'm calling this little shape that's got like 2 points on it a seed shape. I know they sound very, very similar, but just wanted to let you know that's what I was saying so you could tell my difference. So I'm creating those little C shapes and then the little dots. I think what I'm going to do here with these last 2, just the way I've got this arrangement, is I'm going to create like this and then an orb in the center and that one center orb. I'm just going to do something different with these 2 that are kind of little outliers to the pattern. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have an official Toon Alert that is sounding. A Toon Alert. It is time to add another of our Halloween elements to our composition. So zooming back out here, and I'm showing you now where we're going to place this next cartoon element. It's going to go right over here to accompany our ghost. And if your ghost is somewhere else, you can choose to place today's cartoon element right next to that area, or you can put it where I'm putting it and just not have the ghost next to it, whichever you prefer. So we're going to create a little C shape like I just described, and then to go along with today's tangle, we're going to create 2 little triangle shapes, and then from there we're going to take a curved line, can't get my angle here, going out like that, kind of a curve going upward, and then we're going to make 3 little swoops down. So 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, and now we're going to go right to the center. If you imagine a line coming right down here, and then we just reverse the same thing here, but of course we're going behind our little ghost. And yes, you guessed it, we're creating a bat. Now, if you want to imagine here, we're going to have some nice little scowling bat eyes. So now that we've got this penciled in, we can take our ink pen and we do an outline. So we're going to do this in place. And don't worry about his proportion compared to the ghost. Whoever said that a ghost has to be a certain size? Maybe it's a mini ghost. And we're just adding elements. We're not trying to create a Halloween drawing here. We're just creating elements. They can be random, and they can be of whatever size we choose. And if you need to, while you're drawing with your ink or doing that outline, you can modify or improve your shape a little bit if that's helpful to you. But once you've got that basic shape in place, we want to ink it. I know that's a big, bold piece of ink that's going in there, but we want to ink the whole thing, and then we're going to do some embellishments with a white gel pen or chalk. And I'm going to ink this whole shape in. Kind of have a black bat, right? Just leave those eyes open if you can. You could create them with white gel pen too, but sometimes if you don't have that and you want to still have that white area for his eyes, just leave it open and ink right up to your ghost. as long as your ink is dried properly, we can use our white gel pen. I'm just using a jelly roll, and we're going to create some embellishments to him and see if we can't enhance his overall appearance a little bit. So if you need to, you can color in those eyes. Make sure they're good and white. And I should say, too, a reminder to anyone who's new to the channel or just picking up this video, obviously if you don't want these Halloween elements in your Inktober composition, just ignore it and move on. We'll pick up again with the next video with our next Tangle. So what we're going to do now that we've got the eyes and the silhouette, we're going to do a slight, nice little fine line along auraing, if you will, or following as an aura right along the outer or top edge of that wing. We're going to do that to both sides. So that we can define this wing a little bit more like it has a membrane to it that we can see, or the skeletal structure, so to speak. And now we want to draw some lines that go up from these points and meet that line that we drew at the top. Now those lines we're going to stop before they get too close, and we're going to add a little body to our bat so we have some shape to him there. So what I'm going to do here, let me move this so you can see this better. I'm going to create little marks that look like hair, or at least that's the idea, because some bats are hairy, right? The bigger, larger kind. And I'm just going to layer this down, starting at the bottom and layering it upward like this. And we're going to just create little bits of them here. We're not going to really worry about a face per se, but we want to give the shape to his body. And now we're going to do a little bit in the ear, those little triangles, and then we'll continue a little bit of those hair shapes, little tiny marks throughout his body, and then we can do this membrane line, if you will, behind him. And we're not going to worry about drawing his feet or anything like that. We're just going to have a symbol of our little Halloween bat. So what do we do about our Tripoli now that the Toon Alert has subsided and we're done with that? We can now come back to our Tripoli and look at shading. Now these, again, because the shapes are so small and we've got them in this tight little spot, it's really pretty limited what we can do to shade these things. You could shade individual components or create some shades in the corners along the edges or something like that. A lot of people like to shade in between, like in these blank spaces, and create a meta pattern there, or some sort of a background pattern. That's something that I would probably do here myself, but I'm going to save that because, as I've mentioned I think once or twice before in our series, I'm hoping to add a little bit of color to the background of this where it might peek through between my Tangle elements. So I'm not going to fill that with shading right now. And because these pieces are so small, there's really nothing that I'm going to individually shade in this particular case. At the moment, I may shade around it or create an aura or something in the future as we lay more pieces of our tangles in. But for me today, I am not going to shade that at all. I'm going to leave it just as it is. So that means that day 16, adding Tripoli and our Toon Alert bat, we are done. And we can take a look here now and see what Gayle has come up with her drawing, and we'll be able to do that side-by-side comparison for you. All right, let's take a look. Here is Gayle's version. So I'll zoom in and we'll take a look first at her Tripoli. Nice. I really like the size of yours. If you see mine here, it's quite small. You allowed yourself more room to work with, and so your patterns are more visible. Really nice job.
You fit in some nice different patterns. So
Well, I was trying to go for the outer shape and then fill it in, so I didn't think
I
ahead.
need to shade some of these a little bit too, my little tendrils.
Oh, that's all right. However you want to do that. But no, your Tripoli looks good. And let's scoot over here to the bat. You added him in basically the same place I did, right behind your ghost.
Yep.
Nice. He fits nestled right in there. They look like they're Halloween pals, and that is super cool. So that's Gayle's. Let's zoom back out. We'll do a little bit of our side-by-side again. I kind of already mentioned the Tripoli. So Gayle kept her pattern a little more tight. I have some stragglers on purpose, and then mine are a lot smaller than Gayle's in that area. So great job on both. And then let's flip it this way. And here's Gayle's bat, and there is my bat. And so we've got, let's see, can we zoom in and see that a little closer? There we go. That helps.
Nice.
A little side-by-side action there. Very cool.
Nice.
And I guess we could reverse that sizing here so people can see both.
Cool.
Excellent.
That was
Well,
fun.
thank you everyone for joining us. Hope you had fun with today's Tripoli pattern and also our little Toon Alert bat that decided to show up and get added to our composition. And we're excited to see what happens tomorrow. So we hope to see you all back again. Until then, take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.